Hey guys, this is Off Time Ran with another Denizen video. I know it's been quite a bit of time, but I assure you I've been programming away and trying to finish things up to release 1.0. I apologize for not making more videos, but it's hard for me to make videos when I know things aren't in their final form yet. So I'd rather just make videos on things that I knew were going to continue to be the way that they are. Hey, I wanted to take this opportunity to show you how to, or show you the basics of making your own Denizen command. And for this tutorial, I'm going to assume that you have Denizen forked and already in your programming IDE. As you can see here, I'm using IntelliJ. It obviously works with Eclipse too, or NetBeans, and maybe in the future I can go over on how to fork that and get it compiling. And I apologize if this is over your head at that point, but there's lots of tutorials on how to fork stuff on the internet, and to get it up and running, you basically need to install Git and Maven and get it compiling. If you're on a Mac, it's actually really easy because both Maven and I believe Git and I believe Java JDK are already installed. But anyway, if you're familiar with the code already, you'll know that commands are stored in the scripts and commands package. 0.8 used to have all the commands in the core, but I've noticed that we're getting quite a few commands, so in 0.9 I've split them up into different packages. Walk is what I'm gonna be doing today. I noticed that Walk was still using 0.8 API syntax and the argument helper from 0.8, and I wanted to switch it to the 0.9 API because it's a lot easier to work with, a little bit more powerful, more object oriented. Eventually I'm going to get all the commands moved over, but I really want to start with the core commands, and I've done a few of those already, and then move my way into the MPC commands, since that was the original intention of Denizen. But anyway, yeah, I got to redo the walk command, and I'm gonna start with this little template command that I've packaged with 0.9, and it's in the core. And you'll see here that it has a class that extends abstract command, and abstract command basically just has some methods that help it link to the command registry, and give you some usage hints and required arguments, and it works with the command executor to basically provide a standard. But a lot of that's hidden, because the two most important things in a command are parse args and execute. And you'll see that they both are given a script entry. And a script entry is basically the information that's contained in a script entry. So you'll see here, walk to, and then location, and then it's given a location. The script entry will have obviously this information, and the script executor automatically handles that and gets it to walk to. But the command executor will also propagate a script entry with the arguments, and allow you to kind of for each through them and interpret them. So the command executor will call parse args. Then it does a few other things, some checks and whatnot, and then it runs execute. So parse args should really just have your argument interpretation and check for required information. Once that is satisfied, execute will shortly after be executed. And this is where you should do the debugging for the execution, and whatever code you need to do for the actual execution. So I'm gonna take this template command and copy it into MPC, and I'm just gonna rename it walk command. Okay, and you'll see that it's automatically changed the class name and whatnot. So that's all right. It already changed the package name. That's a good feature, and it already did what imports we need. So basically now all we need to do is fill it out. At the top, basically just a short little description on what the command does. So I'm just going to say handles MPC walking with the Citizens API. Okay. And you'll see here that it says if loading externally, implement dexternal and its load method, which is kind of here commented out. I do eventually want to go over that. That's a really cool feature that I implemented early in 0.8, and it basically allows you to load a Java file uncompiled in a folder, in the Denizen folder, without compiling it or doing anything in an IDE. You can use this to override commands that are already loaded, or obviously to add new commands. I'm not going to go over that right now. I'm just going to assume that we're adding commands straight in the Denizen package, which I know you guys probably aren't doing, but Denizen project is always welcome to pull requests. Just remember that. In fact, a lot of the commands that are in Denizen right now were not made by me, but Spacemaniac and Dr. Bix and Jeebus and David Cernat, all those guys have helped out a little or a lot, and I do appreciate that. So I'll eventually go over this de-external stuff, but I'm just going to delete it for now because we don't actually need it. Okay. So interpreting the arguments, and basically what Denizen gets is a list of arguments, and the arguments are interpreted. You should be familiar with this. Anything separated by a space or quotes, basically. If something surrounded by quotes is an argument, or a single word, anything that has a space except where there are quotes. So, for instance, this run will have an argument of walking task, and then an argument with a prefix of delay and a value of 10 seconds to 30 seconds. Walk to, I decided, and we're just going to make a note here for myself, but it's going to need a location, and it's going to optionally need a range, and I'm also going to add something called auto, or I'm sorry, not a range here, I meant speed and an auto range, basically option argument that you can use. And so knowing that, what I need to do is decide which is most important, and that one should always be, the first argument. And obviously, in this situation, it's location. And you can actually see here in the parse args that there's an example there already, so I kind of feel like I'm cheating. But basically what you want to do is check the script entry and make sure that it doesn't already have an object called location, okay? So that's my first criteria for this argument. If it doesn't already have a location, okay? And my second criteria is if the argument, the arg, matches argument type, and I'm going to give it the type here, which is a delocation. Import that. Whoops. My apologies. Come on. There we go. Imported. So if it doesn't already have a location and it matches the argument type of delocation, I'm going to assume that this is the location argument. You'll notice that this is a little bit different from Denizen 0.7 and 0.8, in which it probably needed a location prefix prior to 0.9. I've decided to, obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but you can use a location prefix. In fact, the argument will, basically split that automatically. You can check, a prefix. You'll see here has prefix, matches prefix, but we can match the argument and see if it's a valid location. So the prefix probably isn't necessary. And so I think that's going to make scripting a little bit easier. So now that I know its location, and I don't already have a location, stored in the script entry, I'm just going to assume that given that criteria, this is the location argument for walk. So I'm going to add the object as location, and then I'm going to take the argument and basically cast it to a delocation. And that's it. So basically 3 lines to enable a location argument. And you'll see here that this delocation, this arg as type is basically looking for D objects, which is in the objects package. You'll see there's a bunch of them. There's D color, D entity, D item, durations and elements, and D NPCs. Most of these are working pretty well. Some of them still need a little bit of work, but delocation is good. This matches argument type and and the arg as type is basically just invoking some static methods in these objects. So you'll see here delocation. Let me open this real quick, and we'll kind of focus on this. So if the argument matches argument type delocation dot class, it is basically invoking this method right here. And so it's checking 2 things. It's checking, 1, is it a saved location? Okay. If it is, then it matches. Or is it a handwritten location, or spelled out location, the X, Y, Z, world. And new in 0.9, by the way, you can also have a pitch and a yaw. So it's basically running a matcher and determining if it's true or not. Now when it gets the location from the argument, it's basically using this value of, and the argument is string. So this location, which I've defined here as and this should return a valid location. You'll see here that it's looking for either a saved notable location, the name of it, or I'm sorry, that's right here. If it's a notable location, or if it has four parts split by a comma, it's a regular location. If it has 6, it's location with a pitch and a yaw. So that's kind of what's happening behind the scenes. It's been streamlined, in here, so that you don't have to do your own checks, and you don't have to do your own object creation. It's already handled in the argument helper for 0.9. Okay. So the other thing that we need is to check for the speed, the speed argument. So if script entry doesn't have an object called speed, and the argument matches a double, so integers, doubles, floats, strings, words, booleans. Those are all primitives handled by the element object in Denizen. So there's basically no D object for those necessarily, because they're your basic data types. So, but the argument helper does have this matches primitive method that will help you determine if the argument is a valid double. So if we don't already have a speed and this matches a double, okay, and the arg matches matches the prefix of s or speed, then we can assume that this is a speed. In which case, I just need to, oops, sorry here. Else if, my bad. So we're just going to add speed object, and we're going to add it as an element. And what an element is it's basically Denizen's way of handling numbers and strings and booleans. Instead of having their own objects, they're all kind of umbrellaed into this element. The whole point of Denizen was to make it, easy for a non-programmer to use. And so while this does technically add a few more lines of code, for us, here making this, making this command, I assure you, for the scripter, using this element structure is going to make things a lot easier. So if it matches all these things, I've now added my speed object as an element, just like that. Okay, so that's 2 out of 3 of my arguments are now handled. Okay, so now I want to also check if they've specified auto range. And what auto range is going to do is, you guys probably know that NPCs have a pathfinding range. And if that pathfinding range is too far, you might see the NPC kind of teleport. So what I want this command to do is to automatically determine the distance and then set that pathfinding range to a distance that will accompany this walk, so that no teleportation should happen. I think that's going to make things a little bit easier, handling medium to far distances. I still don't think Minecraft is quite suited for many hundred or even 1,000 block walks. I don't think that's appropriate. But I'm thinking 100 or 200 blocks should work just fine. So I'm hoping that will help with that issue. That's why we're adding that. So else if we don't already have an object for auto range, and arg matches auto range, script entry add object auto range as element true. So element also does have a static true and a static false. Since there's no sense in making a new element every time you need to convey true or false. So that's what that is. It's an element that is preset to true, basically. Okay, so that should be what we need. Old Denizens would throw a fit if you gave it an argument that it didn't recognize. I've decided in 0.9 to do away with that. I thought it was a little unnecessary, and we'll get down to debugging it, down here a little bit. But with the new debugger, I think it's very straightforward what information the command has. So I don't think it's necessary to throw errors every time an argument isn't recognized. So we're going to leave it at that, basically. The for loop for the arguments in the script entry are handled. So location, speed, and the auto range argument. The next thing we want to do in parse args is basically check for the required objects. We do want to throw an error if it can't find a location. So if the user hasn't specified a location, that's not enough criteria for the walk command to continue. So we'll throw an invalid arguments exception for the command executor to know that the information for this command was not satisfied. It'll skip it at that point and give you a little bit of an error message that might help the user figure out what they did wrong. So in this case, I'm going to say if the script entry doesn't have a location object, if the location never got added, then I'm going to throw a new exception here, and I'm going to say must specify a location. So if the user or if the script writer doesn't specify a location, when that is run, they will see this in the debugger. The debugger. So that's it. That's all we need in the parse args. After this is done, there's a few things that are done in the command executor, but very shortly after that, that script entry, now having these objects, is now handed off to the execute method here. Okay, and what we're going to do here, this is kind of how I've set it up. We're going to fetch the arguments. We're going to fetch them again so that we can actually work with them. So we know that our location is a delocation, and you have to cast it. You have to cast it because the script entry doesn't necessarily know what kind of object you're giving it, but luckily we know, so we can cast it. So this delocation that I'm defining in the execute method is basically the same exact location that we added. So it seems a little redundant, but it's a way to enable thread safety, to keep the information, in the script entry, You don't want to have private and public fields and variables inside commands. There's only one command instance. They are not made and created, on demand. There's just this one instance of your command object that's used to fire or to execute every script entry that matches walk in this instance. So we want to keep that information in the script entry. So the other things we have are an element for speed, and I'm going to do something similar here. Okay, and a element for auto range. Okay, and now we have to kind of do something here. We have to do some checks because since these could possibly be null, that is, they're not required. We need to handle that. Okay, and basically the way we need to handle that is just to remember that those could be null, especially on this next part where we debug the execution. And this right here is basically just a good way to show the console what information this command has. And so you'll see here that there's something in the debugger called report. And you can just use getName here. Basically, the report method is just wanting to know what is getting debugged. And this getName method is actually an abstract command, so it's in this, but one layer down, because we're extending abstract command. So we can use that, but now we want to give it, the objects, to debug. And since we've stored and we're using all D objects, they have a method called debug, which makes it real simple. But here's where we need to remember that these two elements may be null. So what we need to say is only add the debug for speed if it does not equal null. And we can do that like this. Okay, and the same with the auto range. So if auto range does not equal null, then we will debug the auto range. Otherwise, add nothing. Okay, and this will provide a nice little set of debug information for the scriptwriter to see upon execution. Okay, now the actual execution here, and this is where we're going to actually implement Citizens API to do the walking. And I apologize, I'm kind of doing this on the fly. I also realized here that we need to check for one more thing, and that is this command requires an NPC, and on top of that, it requires an NPC to be spawned. So we need to say if the script entry NPC does not equal null, okay, and the script entry NPC is valid, okay, and one more criteria: if the script entry NPC is spawned, here. Let me check my logic here. If the script entry, sorry, this is reversed here. We're checking if it is null or if it is not valid. Sorry about that. Or if it is not spawned, must have a valid spawned NPC attached. Okay. And you guys know that there's a lot of things in Denizen where NPCs and players are automatically attached, like interact scripts, some world scripts. Obviously assignment scripts should always have an NPC object. But this command could be used in various parts, and so checking that is important to avoid the users getting a huge stack trace error in the console. So okay, almost forgot about that. But basically, what we need to do here now is to start the execution. So we have three things of criteria, but the first thing we want to handle, we want to say if auto range does not equal null, okay, and auto range equals true, then we want to set the pathfinding range to a value that's big enough. Okay, but first, and again, I'm doing this on the fly, so I apologize. First, we need to figure out a distance. So I'm going to do a couple things of logic in here. So we need to find a distance, and we need to find a distance from, let's see here, where the NPC is now, okay, distance to the location that we specify is going to walk to. So the distance is now equal to the location of the NPC. It's the distance to the location that we specified up here. That should propagate fine. We've already checked if NPC is null, and it is spawned, so it should be safe there. Okay, so now we need to say if the NPCs, and I know the pathfinding range, okay, here it is. So if the range is less than the distance, then we need to set a new range. And so we're going to say script entry, get NPC, get navigator, get local parameters, dot range is now distance. And just to be safe, we're going to add 10. Okay. And then once a float, it's my bad here. Distance is returning a double. So we will just go ahead and cast this to a float. There we go. So now, if we specify this auto range and the auto range is true, we've figured out our distance required. We've done the check to make sure that the range is less than the distance. And if it is less than the distance, then we've now set a new pathfinding range to accommodate that distance. All right, next. We need to check the speed. So if they haven't, if the script hasn't specified a speed or auto range for that matter, nothing is done, and that's how it should be. So if speed does not equal null, okay, and nothing. That's all we need. If speed does not equal null, then we will set the speed on the NPC to speed, and since this is an element, we need to get as a float. So now if the speed was not null, we've now set the navigator parameters, the new speed modifier. And I should note here, and I'm pretty sure it's always been like this, but this is actually a percentage. So a 100 speed is normal. So a 90 speed would be 90% of normal. Okay. So now we've done the two optional things, and we needed to do those before the NPC starts walking. Now we can do the actual walking, and this is super simple, guys. It's just we're going to get the NPC, we're going to get the navigator again, and then we're going to set target as a location. That's it. So at this point, what we need to do is just to make sure that in our command registry we have walk in here, and we've registered as walk and walk to. So I'm going to say walk command, and I now just acquire a location, speed, percentage, and an auto range. And this last argument here, see what this is a registry and core member. This is the class. This is the name of the command that will be sent to that class. This is the usage hint. So what we defined up there, the speed, the percentage, the auto range, and then this right here is the number of arguments that are required. So if there's not at least this many arguments, the command executor will throw an exception. And I just thought here, what happens if someone writes 100%? I think we should handle that since it is a percentage. And I think the easiest way to do that is to change the primitive type from double to percentage, which is a double, but it handles the percentage sign on the end. So that's a good catch. That's it, though. At this point, I'm just going to go ahead and compile. Okay, I'm compiling here. I'm going to go ahead and throw that in my plugins. And reload my server. and I'm going to test it out here. So I'm just going to kind of put it on Mastaba here on click. So he's going to find I'm going to give him grass. He's in a grassy area. He's going to find a surface block of grass within 10. Randomly choose any of those blocks and walk to the location. So we don't need that prefix there anymore. I went ahead and saved that. My server is running. Go ahead and launch Minecraft here. Select Mastaba. Set as assignment. And you see there he's walking. It's awesome. So you'll see here that his location here. This is our debugging information. So it only has the location. So our other two were null. So we'll say auto arrange. Reload our scripts. You'll see auto range true. And let's see if that auto range works. We'll say within 50 in my cell. So I can't see his path, but it should be by default 20. So I'm going to reload the script and oops, did I save that? And yeah, that seems to be a pretty good distance there that he's selected. Look at him. And so that's definitely over 20, so I hope he got stuck there. Sorry, that happens. And then lastly, we'll test out that speed. We'll say walk at 50%. Should probably register that. I don't know if that's working. Let's make that 10%. That doesn't seem to be working. Okay, well that's something for us to debug, but I think the point here is kind of made. I apologize. This is a 40-minute video. If any of you made this through 40 minutes, let me know, and I'll personally thank you. There we go. But yeah, it seems to be pretty efficient. The pathfinding range does seem to be working at least. So yeah, glad you guys could see this, and maybe some of you guys will be interested in making some commands and And there's also lots of other things you can add, to Denizen, the tags and that kind of stuff. But yeah, thanks guys. See you later.